He was running the biggest soccer club in Ukraine. After war broke out, his life changed forever. Soccer executive shares his experiences of leading a club during the war. CNN, the noise of a fighter jet dripping overhead is the sound that Sherhill Parkin finds difficult to forget, even 2 years on. Like every Ukraine, the 49-year-old lived through the nightmare that unfolded as Russia began a full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. While he scrambled to keep his young family safe amid a near constant bombardment, Parkin also had the responsibility of after looking after Ukraine's most successful soccer club, Shakhtar Donetsk. You would never guess Parkin is living through a war when you first met him. He's calm, measured, and quick to keep a joke as he sits down in an unassuming meeting room in London to reflect on how his personal and professional life has changed forever. We are all suffering from everything that's going on. 2 years is a huge time to stay in these kinds of conditions. A very big impact on your psychological stability, on your moral aspect. The softly spoken Parkin tells CNN Sports. Mentally, it's difficult to survive day by day, week by week, month by month. Almost 2 years we have been in these kinds of conditions. Parkin was named Shakhtar Donetsk's CEO in 2004, taking charge of the most decorated club in Ukraine. In addition to its domestic dominance, the team regularly competed in the UEFA Champions League alongside the biggest names of the sport. While previously occupied with the daily running of the business, the former accountant now confronts the issues of life and death on the daily basis. Soccer all of a sudden wasn't important. People's lives became the biggest priority. Shakhtar Donetsk now plays its games as much for Ukraine as for anything else. While his own family sought refuge abroad in the early stages of the invasion, Parkin hunkered down in the besieged city of Kiev and didn't leave until every one of his players were safely out of harm's way. Since the conflict began, though 6 people with direct ties to the club have died, according to Parkin. My life completely changed, and I started to be involved in the crisis management. This is the most important thing I dealt with and deal with now, he says, explaining the new demands on his role. Because of the war, we have this crisis everywhere. Soccer returns. By the end of the 2022, soccer returned to Ukraine as the country's Premier League resumed, albeit without fans. While some matches were paused because of air raid sirens and despite the obvious risk of staging a competitive sporting event during the invasion, soccer was deemed as an important part of the war effort. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said as much, allowing players to travel around Europe in order to represent the country on the global stage. Soccer was now a symbol of hope amid the misery of conflict. Parkin says everything the club did and still does is in order to help win the war, whether that be raising money by playing charity matches or providing some good news to the soccer-mad population of Ukraine. If they allowed us to leave the country in wartime, it means that we need to give huge feedback for people living in Ukraine, he says, referring to how the club travels to play exhibitions around the world and its home games in Germany. It means that yes, you can lose, but you should play from the heart, and you should show the best football you can, attacking football, beautiful football like our DNA. Shakhtar has certainly done that at times, most recently beating FC Barcelona 1-0 in the Champions League group stage in November. It was a result made all the more impressive given the logistics involved with the club playing games in wartime. Logistical nightmare. In truth, Shakhtar has been an itinerant club since 2014 when it was forced out of its home in the Donbas region amid Russia's forceful annexation of Crimea. But even this club was tested after the full-scale invasion. While flying in and out of Ukraine impossible, the team often spends days traveling on buses in order to reach their location for matches. Parkin looks exhausted as he reels off the long list of practicalities that needs to be addressed, including ordering food for the team and ensuring they are always as safe as possible. Parkin admits the team is often not on a level playing field when it plays in European competitions. How can a play for example, be expected to compete at the highest level when he's just spent 2 days sitting on a bus? For us to continue to play football and to concentrate 100% on the game is very difficult because you're always thinking about what's going on at home with your parents, with your family, he says. If you look at the life of our players, it's not normal. Everything that we are doing today in our football life in Ukraine, it's not normal. From a physical point of view and from a mental point of view, it's very difficult to live, let alone show good, attractive football. Our players have shown themselves like real heroes. Parkin is busy trying to rebuild his squad while hoping for peace in Ukraine. The soccer world has largely stood by Ukraine, showing public signs of support and raising millions of dollars for the relief effort. However, Parkin is critical of World Soccer's governing body FIFA, who he says has forgotten his club. The root of his criticism lies in FIFA's decision to adopt a ruling which allowed international players and coaches to suspend their contract with Ukrainian and Russian clubs. Shakhtar's strategy has long been focused on bringing young players, notably from Brazil, to the club, developing them and then sell them for a profit. Former Manchester City midfielder Fernandinho is the perfect example, moving to the Ukraine from Brazilian club Athletic Palanense in 2005 before joining the Premier League giant for around $40 million in 2014. But many of those players which the club has invested in before the war left Shakhtar for free as the result of the ruling. Parkin said he was happy to facilitate the players leaving the club, but argued the ruling allowed some clubs to take advantage, signing Shakhtar players for nothing before recoupling the profits after moving them on. Parkin says the club was left with a debt of over $43 million. Shakhtar was part of the group that appealed FIFA's decision to the Court of the Arbitration for Sport, but the case was dismissed in January 2023. The club then filed a complaint with the EU's European Commission last year as Parkin continues to fight for justice. The European Commission told CNN it was currently assessing the complaint based on their standard procedures. We are one football family, and if one member of the family has the problem, everybody should support, says Parkin, praising English Premier League club Chelsea for its conduct when signing young star Mikhailo Mudryk from Shakhtar in 2023 for an initial $75 million. You see a lot of positive words of support, but in some cases, when you need the support, there is no support. The situation with FIFA for me is very strange and not understandable at all. FIFA referred CNN to the CAS decision when asked for comment. Power of sport. While the word means Parkin is unable to plan for more than a month in advance, his focus is on building a squad back to its former glory. He admitted that signing players amid the uncertainty is difficult, but not impossible. Even when players are keen, he said it's another question when it comes to convincing parents and family members to let their child go. I don't have any case when we couldn't sign because of the war. There can be different issues, but the war is not a major one, he says. Despite all the challenges, the Shakhtar CEO is confident his club can come out of this impossible time in a strong position. Shakhtar Donetsk beat Barcelona in the Champions League at November 7th last year. Not least because Shakhtar is the team playing for more than just a point. Parkin has witnessed how the support he loves can offer temporarily improve from the darkest of the times, and how the money raised from charity matches can have the tangible impact on supporting those trying to rebuild their lives. Football has unbelievable world level influence, he says, a smile breaking out on his face. Believe me, this influence can change anybody, and we live through this, and we understand this because we feel it and we see the reactions. It's above everything, you know. And if we all stay together and go in one way, I can tell you 100% we can positively change any area of humanity. Shakhtar Donetsk failed to qualify for the knockout rounds of the Champions League this year, but dropped into this season's Europa League, Europe's secondary club competition instead. It faces French side Marseille on Thursday in first leg of the playoff match. The game will once again take place in Hamburg, Germany.